Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Jade Dynasty Season 3 based on novel. So let's start. Qingyun Hill. Tongtian Peak, Founder's Ancestral Hall. That old man, who was keeping watch at the hall, right now was still holding onto his decrepit broom, standing at the great hall entrance, looking out. The wrinkled face indistinctly revealing a different type of expression, like expectation, and yet also excitement. On the empty ground outside the great hall, there was no one. But looking carefully, one would realize on this empty piece of ground, a great number of strange charms were either pasted onto the surrounding trees, or hidden under the rocks in the grasses. Every charm was placed a distance of about half a jong away, looked unconnected, but in fact it formed a mysterious formation, isolating this empty ground from its nearby surroundings. The pleasantly warm sun shone down from the sky. Inside and outside the formation, the ground looked the same, illuminated as one by the sun. However, the next moment, suddenly a sharp sound rang out from that empty ground. The old man standing at the entrance raised his head and looked over. The hand that was holding the broom subconsciously tightened. A different kind of darkness suddenly appeared above this empty ground. In a blink of an eye, it enveloped the air above the ground, instantly permeated the air with a heavy, harsh feel. But this darkness only appeared above this empty ground. To say it accurately, only within the formation formed by the charms. Evidently, this strange formation perimeter was set up by a highly skilled person to trap this energy within it. The black energy gas in the air thickened, made one felt as if he was standing in the 9 netherworlds, but at the next moment, suddenly a long whistling of dragons singing emitted from the black gas. Bluish-green light flashed, burst forth from the black gas, in an instant shining with boundless radiance, dispelling the black energy and leaving nothing behind. Lin Jingyu held the Dragon Slayer sword, hovering high up in the air, the jade-green light emitting from his body, resplendent, both of his eyes shone fiercely, human and sword as one, pounced straight down from the air. The Dragon Slayer sword with its multitude of rays, made a loud whistle with a boom, its presence overwhelming, while still far up high in the air, the dust on the ground had started to stir. Sands and stones scattered. And Lin Jingyu's body like lightning striking down, due to the high fierce speed, beside his body, flames erupted in the air. Looking like a war deity filled with fighting spirit, without any regards, striking down. The old man's lips suddenly started to quiver. The deafening boom came in an instant. The ground hit by this amazing power groaned. Immediately the ground in that formation cracked, big and small rocks lifted from the ground, jumped up into the air. And the resplendent jade-green light ball in the core of that force had pierced deeply into the ground. The various charms around this empty ground, including the mysterious charms drawn on the ground, suddenly started to glow. An indistinct incantation in the air was heard, like a low chant, invisible energy spreading out, encapsulating this devastating force within it, preventing it from leaking out. Outside the formation, the sunlight warm, trees and grasses leisurely at peace, yet inside the formation, heaven and earth turned upside down, like in a violent storm. This was the amazing scene right now outside Qingyun Hill Founder's Ancestral Hall. In a distance, a dark green figure gazed over from afar, his hands clasped behind, unmoving. The storm within the formation gradually died down, the sands and stone thrown into the air due to the huge force landed one after another. The cracks on the ground, and that massive crater, were evidence of that earth-shaking impact. On that old man's face, his lips twitched, eventually revealed a hint of smile. Deep inside his eyes, there seemed to be a trace of being gratified. After a sound of whistle, Lin Jingyu holding the Dragon Slayer sword, leapt out from that deep crater, his body caked with dirt. Even his handsome face was marked with some. After his body landed, he immediately started to pant heavily, but on his face, an uncontainable excitement. He lifted his head, looked towards that old man standing at the entrance. The old man's lips had a smile, slowly raised his hand towards him, beckoning slightly. Lin Jingyu's breath started to calm down. He hurried over to the old man, called out, "Senior, I." That old man smiled and nodded, his gaze on him, full of gratification and affection, quietly said, "You are good, really very good." Speaking, he slowly lifted his head, gazed at the sky, leisurely said, "Even if it was me at that time, the time took to complete this style, slay ghost deity, true way sword formula, was not much faster than you." Lin Jingyu, a shua of sound, sheathed the sword, the excitement on his face still remained, said, "Senior, if not for your guidance, I do not know when I would be able to complete this level of supreme true way." That old man humphed, revealing a hint of disdain on his face, indifferently said, "Now in Qingyun Hill, other than Daoxian, only Tian Bu Yi, and your former teacher, can still make the cut. The rest of the elder leaders are all good for nothings. Lin Jingyu was stunned. He had been studying under this old man for more than 10 years. In these years, for every progression in his training, the respect and reverence for this old man increased. He really felt that this elderly had shown him a universe that he had never known existed, that cultivation could actually be like this. And as the days went by, Lin Jingyu interacted more with this old man, and the old man also gradually liked and doted on him. They also started to talk more, and naturally their topics would bring up some discussions on some of the world's figures, and each time, the old man's tone would surprisingly turn arrogant. As if in his eyes, not many could measure up to his level. In the beginning, Lin Jingyu although did not dare to refute, but in his heart he felt unconvinced. However, as the training developed, the more he felt that this old man was really unfathomable, and even for his arrogance, he must have his own reasons. With his level of skills, truly how many could match up to him? However, he had always found that Big Bamboo Valley plump teacher uncle, Qian Bu Yi, to be an eyesore. Most likely one of the reasons was because he had saw Qian Bu Yi berating Zhong Xiaofan. Right now he could not help but say, "Senior, that Qian Bu Yi looks quite sloppy and ordinary. What is so great?" That old man glanced at him, shook his head, said, "What do you, a young man, knows? Qian Bu Yi looks harmless, but on the cultivation training he is naturally gifted, and beside he has unswerving determination and dedication, not what an ordinary person could match." Just this point is especially important in the later part of the cultivation. That year after he joined the sect, he was just always average, but once he received guidance and enlightenment, his training improved by leaps and bounds. His achievement, compared to those frolic senior brothers and sisters who looked down on him, instead was higher than them. He coldly snorted again, said, "The people in this world, 8 or 9 of them are mediocre, like previously Tian Yun, Shong Zhengliang, those useless things. What do they know?" Lin Jingyu was silent, but looking at the haughty old man's face, his words had even belittled Taoist Tian Yun and several Qingyun elder leaders whose names had once shook the world. If this was spread outside, it would be a rude joke to the world, but for some reason, Lin Jingyu did not have the slightest doubt when he heard it. That old man turned and looked at Lin Jingyu, said, "Although you are able to display this style, slay ghost deity, but this form is strong, violent and extremely young. It although has a powerful force, but it consumes great amount of the body's vitality. You are endowed by nature, at your young age, and you could already achieve this style, but you will still need to keep on practicing in order to wield it as you desire. If it is not at the critical moment, better not summon this true way sword formula." Lin Jingyu kneeled before him, respectfully said, "Yes, disciple understands." The old man helped him up, assessed him with a few glances, a trace of pride on his face, said, "In the world now, everyone in and outside Qingyun Hill only knows Celestial Sword Wheel Thunder True Formula, as our Qingyun sect Supreme True Way. Actually our sect Qingyi founder, what an exceptional figure he was at that time. He sorted out the true ways passed down by our ancestors, and by himself comprehended what was on the nameless ancient scrolls, in total passed down 4 styles of true sword formulas. Which one isn't peerless and powerful supreme true formulas?" "What?" Lin Jingyu was surprised, said, "There is actually such a thing. My teacher he never told me that before." That old man shook his head slightly, said, "Your teacher also did not know." Lin Jingyu was even more stunned. Kang Song Taoist's status in Qingyun sect was one below and above thousands, but this elderly man actually said that even he did not know. However, Kang Song Taoist did in fact never mention this to him before. The identity of this old man, Lin Jingyu could not help but feel even more intrigued. That old man's eyes, full of life's vicissitudes and experiences, looked at his face and knew what this young man was thinking, but he did not say it out, instead suddenly frowned, as if he had sensed some movements. His eyes suddenly looked into the distance. After a moment, he looked away, his expression somehow strange, faintly said, "It is late, go on back first." Lin Jingyu hated to part, but he had always revered this old man like deity, and did not dare to disobey. He properly kneeled down and kowtowed 3 times before leaving. Not long after, only that old man was left alone. After a long while, his body again resumed its hunched form, hobbled to a side and started to sweep. The dust flew around. While he was sweeping up the stones and dust, the concealed mysterious charms were also swept up easily like nothing, drifted into the dirt. After tidying up the empty ground, he stacked the stone pieces into the crater created by Lin Jingyu, and with difficulty managed to level it. This old man looked to be slightly panting and tired. After standing and resting for a while, he then slowly turned and walked back into the founder's ancestral Great Hall. In the Great Hall, it was tranquil and dim as usual. Deep inside the hall where countless of tablets were enshrined, dots of blinking candlelights soundlessly burned. However, right now, one more human figure suddenly appeared, stood before those tablets, tall and still. That person's dark green robe, with a celestial demeanor, he was the current sect head of Qingyun sect, Reverend Dao Xian. Reverend Dao Xian heard the footsteps, turned and glanced over at the old man, but did not speak, again turned back to the ancestors' tablets, stepped forward, took up 3 thin incense sticks on the altar, lighted them up from the candle beside, respectfully bowed 3 times while holding the sticks and placed them into the incense burner. I have not come to offer incense for some time. Reverend Dao Xian's voice was calm and slow, like speaking to a very, very old friend. Wonder if the ancestors would blame me. Standing behind him, that old man tottered over, placed the broomstick aside and took up a piece of rag, gently wiped away the ashes on the altar, quietly said, "You have brought such glory to our Qingyun sect. Our ancestors could not be more happier. Why would they blame you?" Reverend Dao Xian smiled faintly, turned and looked at him, suddenly said, "You seem to have age again." The old man's body paused for a moment, then continued to wipe the table, without turning his head said, "For someone whose heart is also dead, naturally will age faster." Reverend Dao Xian quietly watched that old man, did not speak anymore. The elderly unhurriedly and detailedly finished wiping the table, placed the rag aside, turned and faced Reverend Dao Xian. After looking at him for a while, suddenly spoke, "You saw all that just now?" Reverend Dao Xian silently nodded, with a sigh said, "That child's aptitude is indeed high," but his voice seemed louder. "I did not expect you will pass him the slay ghost deity. That old man humphed, said, "The child's heart and aptitude are all good. Since it is so, why not? Don't tell me like you, keep it to yourself and bring it to the coffin." Reverend Dao Xian's countenance changed. He seemed angry, but for some reason, towards this old man, he, the world's good faction respected leader, seemed especially patient, even with such sarcastic words. Only his expression changed and then he controlled it. "Oh right, there is one more matter that I need to tell you," Reverend Dao Xian indifferently said. That old man raised his head, said, "I am only an old man with 1 foot in his grave. What matter is it?" Reverend Dao Xian said, "Today, later on, Fenxiong Valley Master Yun Yilan will be leading his disciples to pay a visit to Qingyun Hill." That old man suddenly frowned, said, "Yun Yilan." Reverend Dao Xian smiled and said, "You still remember him, right?" The old man sneered, turned over, his voice suddenly turned deep with meaning, said, "That man is a crafty old one." Southern border, 7-mile cave mountain range. Here was an undulating mountain range, with 7-mile cave as the center, stretched out in 4 directions. All along, the mountains here were exuberant and flourishing, but right now it had totally lost its original look. Cold yin wind blew from the sky, screaming past the mountains, like ghosts wailing. The sky was full of black clouds, looming overhead, similar to the day where Li tribe attacked 7-mile cave, but the power and might far exceeded that day. And in the forests, which used to have multifarious birds and animals, right now had completely turned into a living hell, different kinds of demonic beasts, and races everywhere, and corpses of birds and animals massacred strewn all over, the air heavy with the smell of blood. Following a sound of long cry, a distinct figure flew over from a distance. Within a few leaps the figure had reached. He was Qing Long. His face grim, his robes already stained with blood. A powerful wind brushed past. He stopped on one of the branches above, urgently scanned the surroundings and then looked behind. In the subdued forest, a sharp long howl suddenly erupted. Sounds of wings flapping. That enormous huge white-boned demonic snake suddenly leapt into the air. Its 2 huge eyes immediately reflected Qing Long's figure. It gave an even louder cry and leapt forward. And closely following behind it, black gases surging, the roars came like waves. It was actually countless of demonic beasts surging over, together pouncing towards Qing Long. Not long before that, the 7-mile cave where the Miao tribe resided, was suddenly besieged by innumerable demonic beasts. Leading them was actually this terrible demonic white-boned snake. This snake's body was gigantic, white bones danced where it passed by, human and animals beside were all thrown out, and its body could even eject poisonous gases, which were immediate fatal to humans. As for the other evil beasts, their strength powerful and extremely brutal. Although the Miao people were brave, but how would they be a match for these demonic monsters? In a short while all hell had turned loose in 7-mile cave, a scene of massacre. Qing Long saw the situation and reacted immediately. Asked the Miao tribe leader Tu Ma Jiu to lead the remaining Miao people into the altar. Those shaman masters inside the altar knew a little of the southern border shaman skills and would be able to hold off for a while, and he charged forward. Made unexpected sly heavy attacks on the snake with his swift movements and skills at the same time, wounding the demonic snake. As expected, most of the demonic monster's attention were all directed to him. However, aside from the rest of the demonic beasts, this white-boned snake was something not to be trivialized. with Qinglong's level of skills, including his rare treasure, Ring of Universe Clear Light, he was still unable to win. And as the number of beasts continued to grow, the pressure on him increased. He was appalled and also had the intention to lure those monsters away, and so escaped up the mountain. As expected, many of the monsters, including the snake, also followed him up. Just that since he wished to lure them away, he was unwilling to fly and so swept past the forest ground. But contrary to his expectation, the wild animals and birds in this mountain had also went through a bizarre change. Either they were slaughtered or they turned into brutal demonic beasts. Wherever he went, he would be attacked. It was really hard to deal with. Right now, Qinglong again flew up, avoiding the raging white-boned snake's tail attack. But when he looked down, 3 or 4 huge trees, which had lived for unknown number of years, like withered leaves, swept aside in a loud crashing sound. Among these, many smaller monsters were also hit. Immediately their wails were heard. The white-boned snake saw Qinglong soaring up, its snake head lifted towards the sky, angrily bellowed. Suddenly its 3 wings flapped, its enormous body lifted up, pouncing towards Qinglong in the air. Qinglong was taken aback. Although he had saw the wings on the monster in the beginning, but for such a huge body to take flight, this strength was astonishing. The humongous body was seen towering and pouncing over. But Qinglong was after all not an ordinary human. He is one of the 4 holy envoys of the Ghost King sect, naturally excelled others. His body twisted, forcefully escaped out from the gap between the snake's body, heading towards the opposite direction of the 7-mile cave. The white snake roared in succession, flapped its wings and pursued. Qinglong, after flying for a while, as he was highly skilled, gradually he left the white-boned snake and the rest of the monsters behind. When he saw that the distance was slightly further, he contemplated if he should shake those monsters off and then turned back to 7-mile cave to check out how are the Miao people doing. At this moment, a quick glance from the corner of his eyes, he saw a purple light flashed past below him and next, blood sprayed out. The sounds of beast roars were heard one after another. Immediately the demonic beasts from all directions started to run towards the place below him. Looking down, innumerable savage beasts brandishing their claws and fangs pounced over, like infinite turbulent waves. It was really a shock to see. And among them was a girl's angry cries. Qinglong was shocked. Numerous thoughts flashed past his head like lightning. In the end his body still bent down, went forward to investigate. Upon entering the forest, the smell of blood and flesh made him wanted to vomit. Everywhere was the animals' corpses, in pieces with blood splattered everywhere. Not farther indeed was a girl battling with the monsters, in her hand a purple magical weapon glimmering, the sharp edge stabbing in and out. One look and it did not look like an ordinary weapon. Qinglong's eyes squinted. He exclaimed, "Purple light sword, you are Jin Pinger." That girl seemed to be taken aback, turned and looked, her body drifted over, her hands never stopping for a second. Where the purple light flashed, another 3 monsters were slaughtered. "Who are you?" Jin Pinger landed beside Qinglong, coldly said. Qinglong felt puzzled. With Jin Pinger's current skill level, why did she not fly? Once she is up in the sky, only a small number of the beasts could ascend into the sky. Wasn't it much easier? Although he was thinking that way, but Qinglong still prepared an answer. Just that before he could open his mouth, both Jin Pinger and his body shook at the same time and both looked ahead at the same time. Just when that wave of frenzied innumerable monsters, like tide waters, receded, ahead of them deep inside the forest, a wave of cold murderous intent gushed over. This invisible feeling made these 2 highly skilled figures could not help but shiver. Qinglong was aghast. In the southern border, there was actually such terrible thing. While they were in shock, the next moment, behind a huge tree, a figure suddenly moved. A human unhurriedly walked out. That person was dressed in bright silk. A head full of black hair covered his shoulders, both hands slender and fair. His face was even more striking. It was a beautiful, almost to the point of seducing, a young man. Qinglong was dumbfounded, but almost at the same time, he suddenly sensed that Jin Pinger's body beside him, for some reason, after this man appeared, seemed to be slightly trembling. The forest quietened down gradually. A moment before there were still demonic beasts howling ferociously, and then for some reason, all of them dispersed far, in such a haste, and Qinglong was taken aback by that. In his heart, Qinglong was even more nonplussed by Jin Pinger's reaction to this strange young man. That young man's gaze unhurriedly stopped on them, after carefully assessing them, slightly frowning, said, "Are you all Central Plains people?" The way the young man said was gentle and pleasant and in perfect Central Plains language. Qinglong was astonished and instead asked, "Who are you?" That young man smiled, revealing a set of white teeth. He looked somehow innocent, completely out of place with the surrounding scene of massacre. He was heard saying, "Who am I?" "This is a good question," he slowly spoke. Who am I?" Qinglong humphed, quietly said, "I am Ghost King Sect Qinglong. Who is this person?" Jin Pinger was surprised. Clearly she knew of Qinglong. The internal fights among the three big branches of the evil sect had always been vicious, Jin Pinga as the new generation of He Huan sect outstanding disciples. Although she had never met Qinglong, but the information on this important figure in Ghost King sect, she had long knew it by heart. She immediately nodded slightly, considered it a greeting. Actually, from their standpoint, they should be foes and not friends, but right now in this southern border, demonic beasts, all around them, both inevitably treated the other party as battle allies. Jin Pinga cast a sideway glance at that young man, quietly said, "Be careful, he is the evil beast, all of the demonic beasts are under his command, he is very highly skilled." She paused for a moment and softly added, "His skills are also very strange." Qinglong frowned. He was about to inquire more when a roar was heard behind him, following which sounds of trees crashing down were heard incessantly. Both of them turned around hurriedly. That white-boned snake was charging straight over, just that the other small demons were not seen beside it. Most likely like the other demons, with the appearance of the evil beast, they had stayed far away from this area out of fear. Qinglong did not expect the snake to catch up this quickly. The demonic snake looked like it was about to reach. Accompanied by a strong stench of blood, the white figure flashed, the enormous body sweeping over. The ancient trees before this demonic beast, like grass, swept away. In the racket they were pulled up by the roots, flying over in this direction. Qinglong and Jin Pinga both leapt up at the same time. Both were not ordinary figures, and with one glance they could tell this snake was not a simple demon, its demonic energy brimming, evidently highly skilled. But more importantly was that the mysterious young man in front of them never made a move. The two of them could not tell the level of his skills. Qinglong was still better, he was only secretly fearful, but that Jin Pinga seemed to know much more than Qinglong, was extremely tensed, even while facing the white-boned snake. Half of her attention seemed to be placed behind her. Jin Pinga's movements naturally could not avoid the seasoned Qinglong's eyes. Both of them did not fight with the snake heads on, and instead with their agile skills, leapt and flied around the snake, occasionally sniped at the white-boned snake. That snake's body seemed to be very tough, ordinary magical weapons were unable to hurt it. And the demonic snake, who could not catch up with Qinglong and Jin Pinga, howled incessantly, its huge body twisted and turned ceaselessly, its speed increasing, not the slightest cumbersome, gradually catching up to them. Qinglong was taken aback. This white-boned snake was actually this formidable. The young man, who was said to be the evil beast by Jin Pinga, as the head of these demons, wouldn't he be even more terrible? With such thoughts, he decided to escape. While brushing past Jin Pinga, he urgently said, "Let's go." Jin Pinga obviously did not wish to stay here any longer, immediately nodded and at the same time pointed towards the sky. Qinglong understood, and almost at the same time, both of them made a light hoot. A stream of clear light from Qinglong's finger mixed within Jin Pinga's purple light, hit the bones of the snake from the side. Even though the white snake's bones were tough, it was also hit reeling back by these two highly skilled people. Its snake body softened and with a few shakes dispersed this strong force, but eventually it was unable to continue pursuing. With this break, Qinglong, with a light whistle, leapt into the air, but when his body had just moved, he suddenly had a thought and from the corner of his eyes looked over. Jin Pinga was not seen flying up. While Qinglong was feeling alarmed, the clear sky in front of him suddenly darkened. A sheet of darkness appeared above the tree branch where he leapt from, with an overwhelming force charged over. Qinglong, in the nick of time, luckily was alert. His right finger, ring of universe clear light, surged with clear light, instantly creating a circle of light, and protecting his body. At the same time his body forcibly shifted to the side. Even so, the force of that sheet of darkness was inconceivably fast. With a loud sound of pong, Qinglong's protective circle of light was still hit and thrown out. Also at the same time, Qinglong clearly saw Jin Pinga transformed into a stream of purple light, flew up to the sky after that sheet of darkness was diverted by him. Distantly, he could still hear her coquettish laughter. "Many thanks, uncle. Next time, if we meet again, little woman me will definitely thank you personally." Qinglong fought to suppress the turbulent blood and energy in his chest. A wry smile appeared on his lips. His whole life unhindered, and yet at his later age he would actually be schemed by this young girl. However, by then he could not be concerned with Jin Pinga anymore. He stretched his arm and grabbed the tree bark of a big tree. Sigh, his palm deeply embedded into the trunk and his body made a turn and landed. And the next moment, the white-boned snake had already arrived behind him. Like a tiger eyeing its prey, it did not immediately pounce, the huge head with its forked tongue spitting, making hissing sounds. As for that sheet of darkness, it had landed on the ground. With a suo sound disappeared, extremely fast. It was really unusual. As for that seductive young man, like an apparition, he appeared one jong before Qinglong, clasping his hands behind. Qinglong landed, heaved a long breath out, he was intercepted down, and however right now he was not in a hurry to escape. Frowning slightly, he took a few glances at the young man, suddenly said, "That evil thing in the sky just now, was it the legendary Dao Tai?" The young man's eyebrow raised, a smile revealed on his lips, nodded and said, "Didn't expect you to have an eye for things. That's right, it is Dao Tai." A deep strange sound was heard from behind the young man. A hideous-looking strange head slowly peeked out from behind the young man's back. It was hard to describe what kind of an animal it was, but its 4 eyes, as big as bell, 2 above the other 2 separated on both sides of the face, 6 sharp fangs protruding from its huge mouth, salivating incessantly. Its grey-black skin, full of coarse lumps, even the mortal world's most ferocious spirit, would not be this ugly and hideous as this strange beast. Qing Long sucked in a breath of cold air. The Dao Tai's neck seemed extremely long, that strange head extended long out, and turning around, it circled to the front of the young man's shoulder, and the young man, in front of this savage-looking beast, his expression unperturbed. Qing Long calmed his heart down, said, "Didn't expect that such ferocious beasts still exist in this world." That young man laughed, stretched out his hand and actually patted the Dao Tai's head. That Dao Tai looked extremely fierce, but under this young man's hand, it only softly crooned and even used its head to rub against the man's hand. If not for its hideous look, it behaved almost like a puppy. That young man glanced at Qing Long, suddenly spoke, "Just now that girl, she must be your companion. She clearly knew the Dao Tai was hiding in the sky and yet deliberately allowed you to be the bait, escaped by herself after Dao Tai was lured down. Right now you must be feeling extremely vexed, right?" Qing Long was secretly on guard, but he still smiled and said, "Being tricked by her is because I am incompetent, others is not to blame." That young man took a few more glances at him, nodded and said, "Since it is so, then you shall die." Before he finished his words, he did not seem to make any movement, but the white-boned snake behind Qing Long, which had been eyeing its prey covetously, suddenly, like receiving a command, its huge mouth opened wide and bit down. Qing Long was already prepared, although the snake made a sudden attack, but he did not panic, and instead of retreating, he advanced, directly headed towards the snake, surprising that snake instead. Taking advantage of that moment, Qing Long had already dashed below the snake's body. His body flashed past, avoided the venomous air ejected by the angry snake. With 1 foot he leapt up the white bones of the snake, kicked the huge body forward by 3 kai, at the same time using the momentum to rise up to the sky. Clear light shone from his hands, instantly creating 6 walls of light towards the direction of the Dao Tai. Between the 2 beasts and human, the one he feared the most was that young man, who had not made a move. The white-boned snake roared in succession, but it still was unable to catch up. Qing Long was about to reach up the sky and escape when he felt his leg tightened. His ascending body was caught by a hand, and the next moment, the deep laughter was heard below him. A great force came from that hand. Qing Long only felt his body like being burned, shook violently. He could not help but be flung out by this hand. In the air, his body floated, accompanied by the sounds of tree branches broken. Qing Long's body once again flung into the forest. In the forest, numerous evil beasts' cries filled the air again. In the air, the young man closed his eyes slightly, facing the sky. A breeze blew past, his brightly colored silk clothes flapped and danced in the wind. In a distant, there seemed to be a ferocious beast's cry. Qingyun Hill, Tongqian Peak, Crystal Hall. Qingyun sect from Reverend Dao Xian, the leaders of the various branches gathered in the hall. There were also many elders standing behind the leaders. A few stood at the Crystal Hall entrance. Looking at their expressions, seemed like they were waiting for somebody. No matter who it was, to be accorded with this level of courteous reception, the person was already a world's first-rank figure. Other than Qingyun sect's members, Li Zun was already standing on the right-hand side, quietly and solemnly standing. Only his eyes indistinctly contained excitement. His gaze frequently looked to the other side. Over there, Lu Xueqi in white was standing expressionlessly behind Shuiyu Master. Not long after, the melodious sound of the bell from Qingyun Hill mountain top at a distance was heard. It continuously chimed 5 times. The crowd looked out of the hall. From far, a voice was heard. Fenxiong Valley Master, Yun Yilan Yun Elder paying a visit. Almost at the same time when the voice was heard, a figure like fire appeared at Crystal Hall entrance. He, where is senior brother Dao Xian? Junior brother misses him badly. Yun Yilan, dressed in red and beaming, strided in. Behind him Shangguan Si, Lu Shun, and other senior disciples of Fenxiong Valley, roughly about several dozen people. Astonished murmurs were heard from Qingyun sect members, but after a moment, all of the people's gazes were on Yun Yilan's face. This figure, who was renowned in the good faction for many years, was also once an all-powerful character. The Qingyun elders who were slightly advanced in age and present at the scene, most had seen this person, but right now in their eyes were all shocked expressions. This face vaguely resembled, but it was clearly a robust young man. Was he really the Yun Yilan, who several years ago already had a head full of white hair? Reverend Dao Xian carefully assessed Yun Yilan, walked forward with a smile on his face, said, Yun patron, you and me have not seen each other for many years. Unexpectedly your distinguished self's cultivation have already advanced so much, from Fenxiong Jade volume comprehended Jade Yang realm, a forerunner ever since Fenxiong Valley established 800 years ago. Congratulations. Yun Yilan's face with his pleasant smile suddenly froze. The next moment an astounded look flashed past his eyes, but his face had already resumed to normal, said, Senior Dao Xian is really astute. Admirable, admirable. Reverend Dao Xian smiled and said, You flatter me, it should be me admiring you. Both eyes met, the next moment both of them laughed. Li Zun by the side walked over, kneeled and paid his obeisance, said, Teacher, disciple has been waiting long here. Yun Yilan nodded, smiled and said, Come get up, you have been staying here for a few days. Have you had a taste of the marvel of Qingyun Hill, this paradise land? Li Zun stood up, respectfully said, Qingyun Hill really lives up to its fame. It is really an eye-opener for disciple. Also many thanks to teacher Uncle Dao Xian An. He paused for a moment and clearly said, and Small Bamboo Valley Lu Shuiqi Junior Sister, for bringing me around to appreciate this celestial wonderful scenery. The Qingyun sect crowd immediately with a weng sound started talking among themselves. Other than the elders leaders, there were also many younger generation disciples around. Numerous eyes immediately looked towards that frost-cold girl. Lu Zueqi's lips twitched, but her face indifferent. Eventually she did not say anything. Reverend Dao Xian laughed, held Yun Yilan's hand and said, Yun Valley Master has such a fine disciple. A qualified successor to carry on. Come, please take a seat. Yun Yilan raised himself slightly, said, Reverend please. Both looked at each other and smiled, walked forward at the same time. Reverend Dao Xian and Yun Yilan both sat at the seat of the host. Beside them were their sex disciples. After an exchange of conventional greetings, Reverend Dao Xian smiled and said, Fenxiong Valley is the world's good faction power sect. In the world there are no one who does not revere it. Yun Valley Master, this time actually honor us with your presence. This really brings light to our humble dwelling. Yun Yilan shook his head continuously, said, Reverend is too kind, too kind. Speaking, his expression suddenly changed and he turned solemn, said, Actually, my purpose of paying a visit here. There are two important things I will like to beseech all of you at Qingyun sect. Reverend Dao Xian quickly said, Yun Valley Master is too polite, please speak your mind. Yun Yilan coughed once and said, To tell the truth, this first matter is one that concern a great calamity rarely seen for several hundred years. Qingyun sect disciples immediately looked nonplussed. Qian Bui sitting below Reverend Dao Xian frowned and said, Yun Valley Master, what do you mean by these words? Yun Yilan sighed and said, All of you are unaware. Just 1 month ago, in the southern border 10,000 great mountains that our valley for generations has guarded, an unparalleled evil demon has been revived. Reverend Dao Xian was stunned, said, Unparalleled evil demon. Yun Yilan nodded and said, That's right. It is indeed an unparalleled evil demon. All of you are far in Central Plains, and so do not know the background of it, but our Fenxiong Valley has been guarding the southern borders for generations, therefore we know the details. This evil demon, called himself the Beast Deity, is an ancient Avildor. We don't know where he come from and only know that at that time he brought chaos to the world, slaughtered innumerable living things. Return of the Wind Valley leader, Xing Shuchang, sitting beside Tian Bui frowned and said, Don't tell me with Yun Valley Master's exceptional skills, including Fenxiong Valley strength, and yet still unable to deal with this evil demon. Yun Yilan's face looked grim, said, Everyone please excuse us. It is not that our valley are afraid of trouble and don't dare to shoulder it, but it is really because I know this matter is not trivial and definitely not something Fenxiong Valley can take on by itself, and therefore took the liberty to come forward and request Reverend, for the sake of the common people of the world, to make a public appeal, for the whole world to come and fight it together. Only then we can have hope to win. Else if it becomes too late, then wouldn't there be countless of people unable to avoid death? Qingyun disciples looked at each other. Come to speak of it, all was fine until Fenxiong Valley's sudden appearance and mentioned this unparalleled evil demon, and only with the combined efforts of the world's cultivated Taoists, then there would be hope. How could they accept it? But Reverend Dao Xian was after all an enlightened Taoist. After contemplating for a long while, decidedly said, If this matter is what Yun Valley Master said, then it would be a calamity that the world has never seen before. I and the rest of the cultivated Taoists have always boasted ourselves as the good faction, will definitely not ignore this. Since it is so, our Qingyun sect will work together with Fenxiong Valley to fight against this evil demon, later on I will send a letter to Tianyun Temple Pu Hong Master, and invite him over to discuss this together. Yun Yilan let out a long breath, clapped his hands together, said, "This couldn't be better. Junior brother me can then put down the stone in my heart." Reverend Daoxian laughed and said, "Yun Valley Master must be joking." "Oh right, what is the second important matter? Don't tell me it's another calamity." Yun Yilan's eyes flashed, looked deeply at Reverend Daoxian and said, "It is not, this second matter, it is instead a good thing." Reverend Daoxian's lips revealed a hint of smile. Yun Yilan smiled and said, "The second matter that I am here for, is for my disciple Li Zun, to propose marriage to your honorable sect Lu Xueqi Miss Lu." Once he said the words, Lu Xueqi standing behind her teacher shook and abruptly looked up, and among Qingyun's sect immediately like a pot exploding, an uproar ensued. This reaction was even greater than the news of an unparalleled evil demon calamity. Numerous eyes instantly turned to look at the shocked Lu Xueqi's face, and then to Reverend Daoxian. Qingyun's sect head, Reverend Daoxian, after some contemplation, clearly spoke out, "Li Zun, this child I have observed these past few days. He is really a giant among men, and have boundless prospects." Yun Yilan smiled and said, "Reverend is too flattering, but I indeed have plans to pass on my position as the Valley Master to this good-for-nothing disciple, and before this formidable foe arrival, we have such a joyous occasion. It would even show our absolute sincerity in working together. At the same time rouse the world's heroes morales. Not sure what Reverend thinks of it." Tian Bi Yi, who was sitting beside, had a face of disdain, almost snorted out. Luckily his wife Sua Yu quick-wittedly held him back. Reverend Daoxian looked around, his gaze swept past Qingyun disciples and lastly on Lu Xueqi. Lu Xueqi frowned tightly, her lips quivering, looked as if she wanted to say something, but considering the situation, she in the end did not speak. Reverend Daoxian smiled, turned and spoke to Yun Yilan. "Yun Valley Master's good intention is really unexpected." Yun Yilan cupped his fist, smiled and said, "Humble me and my little disciple are sincere. Hope Reverend can fulfill it." Reverend Daoxian stretched his hand out and stroked his long beard, slowly said, "The innate evil demon, calamity right before us, will need both of our sects to work together, and only then we can save the world. And this marriage, a perfect match. I too like it a lot." Another round of commotion among the Qingyun disciples. Everyone did not expect that Reverend Daoxian would actually agree to this marriage. Reverend Daoxian turned and spoke smilingly to Shuiyu Master sitting beside him. "Shuiyu junior sister, Xueqi is your disciple. By right you should be making the decision." Lu Xueqi's face was pale. Obviously she was taken aback by this matter. When she heard Reverend Daoxian's words, she could not help, but stepped forward and spoke to her teacher. "Teacher." Shuiyu Master slowly lifted her eyes. Her gaze observed Lu Xueqi's exceptional face, as if she wanted to deduce something from her expression, the emotions in her eyes obscure. After keeping quiet for a while, she then unhurriedly said, "Chia, this marriage. I also fully approve of it. Li Gongzi is a giant among men, it is a good match." In the crystal hall, a silence suddenly descended, including Tian Bi Yi and the rest, stared disbelievingly at Shuiyu Master. Lu Xueqi's body suddenly wavered. Li Zun at a distance was already overjoyed. "Ha ha 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 ha." Yun Yilan's laughter broke the stillness. "This is very good, very good. Since both elders agreed to this matter, Zuna, quickly come and pay your thanks to both of them." Li Zun hurriedly ran up, kneeled and kowtowed. Yun Yilan smiled and said, "Today this matter will definitely spread through the ages, eulogize for the world." "Wait a minute." Suddenly, a light shout, in this great hall, in the words of Yun Yilan known as the world's good faction giant pillar, coldly rang out, interrupted his words. Everyone's countenances changed. Lu Xueqi in white like snow, her face pale, one hand clutching Tian Ya's sword scabbard, slowly walked out. Reverend Daoxian's face changed slightly, looked towards Shuiyu Master, but Shuiyu Master only looked at Lu Xueqi's figure, suddenly quietly sighed, closed her eyes, and looked like she would not bother anymore. Reverend Daoxian's face changed again, gradually turned somber. He slowly stood up, said, "Xueqi, do you have something to say?" In the crystal hall, silence. Everyone's stares were all on this white-attired lady. Her clothes fluttered in a windless environment. Looking from afar, even her figure indistinctly looked like duckweed, bobbing uncertainly, thin and frail. Just that her lips were pursed up tightly, her pale cheeks indistinctly had a strange flush. That pair of shoulders started to tremble, for the first time emanated a feeling of helplessness. Suddenly, she abruptly turned around, back facing everyone in the crystal hall, facing the lofty grand hall entrance, looking at that boundless clear sky. At a faraway place beyond the clear sky, towards that unknown place far away. Staring deeply. What kind of feeling was in that gaze? In the crystal hall, her deep yet determined, ice-breaking snow-cutting-like voice. I am unwilling. Far away. The unfamiliar mountaintop, a figure prostrated in a dark corner, suddenly trembled. The wild countryside undulating insects' cries, suddenly stopped. A human figure slowly struggled, stood up in the dimness, as if sensing something, staring dazedly in the distant. A monkey's figure jumped out beside, in 2 or 3 leaps scurried up his shoulder. After a long while, his voice was heard from the darkness. Xiao Hui, why does my heart, out of a sudden, beat so rapidly? Part 1 end here.